In this video, we will discuss the PowerApps environments as Lesson 2 in Module 7 PowerApps Administration. Let me first list the lesson outlines. In this lesson, we will discuss the characteristics of PowerApps environment. After that, we will list the different types of environments that include production, default, sandbox, trial, and developer environments. Then we will list the difference between environments with database and without database. At the end of the lesson, we will have an overview of how to convert a trial environment to a production one. I'm gonna start with an overview about the environments and what an environment means for PowerApps. Actually, the environment are containers that the administrator can use to manage apps, flows, connections, and other assets in your organization. And this environment are created under an Azure Active Directory tenant. PowerApps automatically create a single default environment for each tenant, and this environment is shared by all users in that tenant. Environments enable you to separate apps. An environment serves as a container to separate apps that may have different rules or different security requirements, or it can serve as a container to target audiences. Each environment resources can be accessed by user within the environment tenant, and each environment can have only a single common data service database, and you can create environment without a database. So the environment can have 0 or 1 common data service database. An environment is also bounded to a geographical location. The location can be United States, Asia, and so on. So each app created in this environment is routed only to data centers in that geographical location. And also the connections, gateways, flows using Microsoft Power Automate, and others are also bounded to their environment's location. The app you created can only connect to its environment data source. These data sources including connections, gateways, flows, and common data service databases. So if you have separated environment, for example one environment for test and the other for production, the apps you created in the test environment can only use the data sources that are deployed in the test environment, and do not permitted to connect to the data source in the production environment. You can delete any environment type except you can't delete the default one. And also you will have the ability to recover a recently deleted environment within 7 days of deletion. There are multiple types of environments. These types indicate the purpose of the environment. These types are such as the default environment. As we said, that PowerApps automatically creates a single default environment for each tenant, and you can't block the automatic provisioning of the default environment. The default environment is shared by all users in that tenant, so it communicates with everyone in your tenant. The default environment is not for developing critical applications, and it shouldn't be used to host production apps as it's shared by all users. Also, this environment cannot be disabled or deleted. Another type of environment is developer environment, that provided by the community plan, and it can't be shared with other users. It only for individual use by its owner, the person who created the community plan. Although the developer environment is locked for any user except the user who subscribed the community plan, the applications can be moved out of the environment if needed. Another environment type is the production environment. The production environment is used for the permanent work in an organization, and it can be created and owned by an administrator or anyone with PowerApps license. The production environment will provide you with 1 GB database capacity. Another environment type is sandbox. Sandbox environment are non-production environment, which offers features like copy and reset. The sandbox environment are used for development and testing separate from the production. The sandbox environment requires 1 GB of common data service database capacity to provision. Provisioning sandbox environment can be restricted to admins. Also, you can find the trial environment. This type of environment expires after 30 days. The trial environments are intended to support short-term testing needs and are automatically cleaned after the expiration period, that is 30 days as we said, and it is limited to one user only. The production and the trial environments can be created by users unless disabled in the admin center. There are two types of trial environments that you can create: the standard trial and the trial subscription based. Besides the environment types, we have another option that we are able to create environment with or without database. Let's know the main difference between environment with database and the ones without database. When to create environments with database. You create environment with database if you want to use common data service database that enable you to create Canvas app from the common data service. And also, model-driven app and portal are built in the top of common data service. So you will need environment with database. Besides that, creating an environment with database will provide you to add Dynamics 365 apps. When creating an environment, you can enable Dynamics 365 apps. But be aware, if you don't select Enable Dynamics 365 apps at the time of the database provisioning, you will not be able to make this change later. This is about the environment with database. Then what about the environment without database? You create this type of environment if you don't need to use common data service database, and if you don't need Dynamics 365 apps. But in this case, you can't build model-driven or portals apps in this environment. This is the environment with database and without database. In this lesson, we have learned what are environments and what are the different types of environments that we can use, and how to convert a trial environment to production one, and how to decide to create environment with database or without database.